If you've ever moved between the UK and the US, or even just watched apartment tours online, you've probably noticed some pretty big differences from terminology to layout, appliances, and even plugs. There's a lot that sets British flats apart from American apartments. So today I'm breaking down 10 key differences between UK and US apartments that might surprise you. First, let's start with the terminology. In the UK, the word flat is commonly used rather than apartment, but the terms are synonymous. They both mean, a self-contained unit within a larger building. In the US, apartment is the universal term used to pretty much describe any rental unit, but in the UK, you might hear other terms like maisonette, which is a 2-level flat, or bedsit, which is a single room unit with shared facilities. And in the UK, they also use the word house for a building that shares walls with others, what we would typically refer to in the States as like a townhouse. We would usually only call something a house if it doesn't share any walls or even a yard with anyone else. The proper term is just single family home, right? But we just say house. These subtle differences in language can sometimes be confusing for international renters or travelers. If you're searching for a place to stay online, knowing the local terminology can definitely make your life a little bit easier. Next, let's dive into layout and size. This is something that tends to throw Americans for a loop when they move abroad, honestly anywhere, but especially here in the UK. Unless money is no object for you, or you came from living in a shoebox in New York City, I can pretty much guarantee that your UK apartment is gonna be a lot smaller than your US one. In British cities, particularly London, space is at a premium. So kitchens and bathrooms are super tiny with minimal counter space or storage. In the US, open plan layouts are much more common and apartments tend to have more generous proportions for things. You'll often even find separate dining areas, larger bedrooms, and sometimes even a bonus room or two. It's kind of crazy whenever I reminisce and think about how spacious, newly renovated, and modern, and honestly just incredible our apartment in Austin, Texas was. It was like nearly half the cost of our tiny old apartment here in London. Like our walk-in closet and bathroom alone in Austin was probably the same size as our first entire 1-bedroom apartment here in London. Another noticeable difference is hallways. UK flats usually have longer, narrow hallways connecting small rooms along the way, while US apartments usually have an open concept design to kind of create a sense of space. Next, we'll talk about appliances, and this is the section where the hate comments will start to come in, but that's okay. The appliance game is very different between the US and the UK. In the UK, your washing machine is usually always in the kitchen. This is because of limited space and just the way that the plumbing is already set up. And dryers are much less common. Most people hang dry their laundry either indoors or on their balconies. If you're in the city center, it'll probably be impossible to find a dryer, if I'm being completely honest. I know I had a ton of comments on previous videos saying, I have a dryer, I live in the UK, but they live out in the countryside. So I do want to be clear, they do exist, but they are pretty much less common or just like non-existent in city centers, especially London, where apartments are extremely small. So if you compare that to the US apartments, almost all of them, again, maybe New York City is the outlier, but they all will have a separate washer and dryer, typically within their own laundry closet or utility room in your apartment. And if for some reason you don't have a washer and dryer inside your apartment, like again, maybe New York, you would definitely have a laundry room in the building that would have washers and dryers. They wouldn't just have washers. So nobody hang dries their clothes. Some other appliances to talk about are fridges and ovens. UK versions of both are typically smaller, and freezers may be like under the counter rather than full size. Like in my first apartment, I only had a mini fridge and no freezer, which most Americans would think is insane. And one of the selling points for this new apartment I'm in now was actually a really big fridge and a big freezer, which is still probably half the size of a standard US fridge and freezer. In the US, massive double door fridges and 6-burner ovens are kind of the norm. And another thing that typically gets hate comments, like the dryer, is when I mention dishwashers. In the UK, it's not very common to have a dishwasher, especially in the city center. There's just no space for them. That was another major selling point for my current apartment. I could not believe that there was a dishwasher here. It's a tiny one, but it exists, and that's all that matters to me. And I always get a few comments saying, I have a dishwasher, I live in the UK. Like I said, yes, they exist here, but they are not common. Whereas in the US, you would never find an apartment without a dishwasher. It doesn't matter where you are. So in general, the US, we love our appliances. We love making our lives easier with these appliances. And in the UK, there's just not enough space to have all these appliances. So life does feel pretty outdated. Which leads me to the next point, heating and cooling. In the UK, central heating through wall-mounted radiators is the most common system, and air conditioning pretty much doesn't exist, like not even just in apartments, just in general. So in the summer, hanging out in your apartment or taking the bus or tube is brutal, but in the US, pretty much all buildings have both central heating and air conditioning. You'll find wall thermostats, vents in every room, and year-round climate control. Window AC units are common in older buildings that lack central systems, but again, that's more rare and very outdated. But at least they exist, at least they have an AC, whereas in the UK, it's rare to see any AC, even a window unit or a wall unit just to cool down that one room, unless you're in a very modern or luxury flat. This difference can be a shock during heat waves in London when portable vans sell out quickly. Next up, we have bathrooms, which, surprise, surprise, in the UK are super small. It's typical to find separate hot and cold water taps instead of a single mixer tap like you would commonly find in the States, and the showers can be super compact. Our shower in our first apartment in Hammersmith, which is a lot more central in London than where we live now, was basically the width of my body. Like you could not fully turn in it, and if you dropped something, you really couldn't bend down to pick it up. It was so small, and a lot of times showers are electric here, meaning the hot water for the shower is heated up on demand from an electric heater. So this can sometimes cause lower water pressure and even make you run out of hot water sometimes. But of course, like everything else, US bathrooms are typically larger. They usually have a tub shower combo, full vanities, lots of storage, and dual vanities. And master bedrooms are super popular in the US, while a UK ensuite might barely fit a toilet and a small shower. We even viewed an apartment that was listed as a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and when we got there, each bedroom did have its own bathroom, meaning bathtub and sink. And then there was a random room inside the middle of the living room that just had a toilet in it. So not that that exact situation is common, but it's weird things like that where you would never in the US see something advertised as a bathroom and then there's no toilet in there. Now let's talk about one of the biggest shocks for Americans moving to the UK, the lack of built-in closets. In the UK, it's very rare to have a built-in closet. It's way more normal to buy your own wardrobe here, which is a big piece of furniture you hang your clothes inside and store items. And this applies to the entire house too. Like our first apartment did not have one single storage closet. So it starts to make your house feel super cluttered because there's literally nowhere to put anything. But in the US, closets are everywhere. There's so much storage. No matter what, you will always have a closet in every bedroom. In fact, you can't even legally advertise something as a bedroom unless it has a built-in closet in it. And in most new apartments, walk-in closets are considered the norm. Most of the time, you also have linen closets, coat closets, and extra just storage room closets in general, just all around the apartment. Storage expectations are honestly just so much higher in the US than in the UK, where space-saving furniture like under the bed storage, behind the door storage, and minimalism are more of the norm. Now let's talk about kitchens. Of course, you guessed it, kitchens in the UK are typically compact and functional. Counter space is limited, so it's common to see appliances like kettles and toasters kind of just stacked together with small built-in hobs and smaller ovens. Like I mentioned before, most UK kitchens do not come with a dishwasher or honestly even a microwave, and with limited counter space you really are going to have to pick between getting a microwave or an air fryer. Most likely there's not enough space to have both, but like I kind of mentioned before in the appliance section, in the US full-size dishwashers, full-size ovens, and microwaves are just the standard, and kitchens usually include larger countertops, breakfast bars, or even kitchen islands. US apartments also typically always come with a garbage disposal unit in the sink, which does not exist in the UK kitchens, and that's something I do miss. It really does make life so much easier when food accidentally gets stuck down the drain. Now let's talk about a big one, electricity. The UK uses a 230 voltage electrical system while the US uses a 120. That means you can't use US appliances in the UK without a voltage converter or vice versa. UK plugs are also bulk bulkier, 3-pronged, and come with built-in fuses for safety. Most wall outlets in the UK also have individual on and off switches, so don't forget this, because if you just plug your phone in, let it charge overnight, but you didn't turn on the outlet, you'll wake up with a dead phone, which is something I did a lot when I first moved here. I had talked about this in a few of my videos earlier, and everyone had commented saying it was mostly for safety for that switch rather than just saving on energy costs, even though it can save you a little bit. So if you are traveling or moving between countries, always check voltage compatibility and invest in a proper plug adapter to protect your electronics. Now let's talk about utilities and bills. In the UK, tenants are typically responsible for setting up utilities like electricity, gas, and water themselves. Many flats operate on a pay-as-you-go meter, especially in older buildings, which means you top up your energy usage via an app or like a key fob, which is what we had in our first apartment here, and I had never heard of such a thing. Basically, you take this little key fob and you take it to the post office, ask them to add electricity or gas on it, and you can only pay for it in cash. Then they plug it in, add the amount that you paid for, then you take it back to your home and plug it into your meter. So again, not every apartment is like this, like our new one isn't, but it's extremely archaic and not something you would ever find in the States. In the States, utilities are often included in the rent, managed by a monthly bill from the landlord or a service provider, and a lot of times US buildings offer move-in promotions that will kind of bundle utilities like internet and cable, or even offer like first month's rent free, things like that. And lastly, let's talk about security and access. UK apartments usually use entry buzzers or intercom systems for security, especially in multi-story buildings. Gated communities are less common in the UK unless you're in like a luxury development, but in the US, security can be much more extensive in my opinion. A lot of places have doormen or security, gated entrances, CCTV, package lockers, and even front desk concierges. US buildings also usually have communal amenities like gyms, lounges, pools. It's very rare to find a building with amenities like this in the UK. I have looked into Manchester apartments, and it does seem like a lot of them are new builds, and they are trying to offer a lot of things like this because they're so modern. But as far as I know, that's pretty much it, and very rare in London unless you have an extremely high budget, which is where most Americans would be moving to. And surprise, surprise, they're usually a lot bigger, like dozens or even hundreds of apartments within one complex, whereas a lot of UK apartments are like 3 to 6 flats per building. And one more bonus difference that's just a quick mention is window screens, and I guess just windows in general. In the UK, there are no window screens, so whenever you open the window, bugs just get in, which is so annoying in my opinion. And windows typically open with a handle and then they tilt open. So it's kind of just more of like a sliver that's open, not just a full hole, if that makes sense. Whereas the US is the opposite. They typically always have window screens so no bugs get in when you open your window. And windows typically slide open, so it's just a huge opening. So there you have it, 10 big differences between UK and US apartments. Whether you're an expat, a traveler, or just a curious home design lover, understanding these little things makes a huge difference. So let me know in the comments which of these surprised you the most, or did I miss something that you consider a huge difference between the two? Now let's take a look at some UK culture don'ts. So if you are planning on moving here, make sure you take note on these things.